my name is Kelly Dale with Off the Beaded Path. Thanks so much for joining me today because we are going to learn a classic stitch to make a fun necklace that you can interchange all sorts of pendants that you make out on this necklace. The necklace that I'm going to show you how to do today is a very easy stitch called the herringbone stitch. Once you get a hang of this basic stitch, then you can go to town with this, and it's so much fun. And again, it's a simple stitch once you master the technique. Basically, for the one we're going to do today, all you're going to need is some size 11 seed beads. Now, you can use any size seed bead to make this project, but I'm going to be using size 11 seed beads. To stitch the necklace itself, we're going to need either a size 10 or 12 needle, and then you're going to need your favorite beading thread. For some of you, it may be 6-pound fireline. Others may be 1G KO, nano feel, and some of you may love the new dragon thread, and you can use that as well. So there's lots of options that you can use as far as your stringing materials. Now, I will tell you, this one project, you really have to watch your tension on this project. I am a very tight beader, and I know that there are a lot of you out there like me who stitch really tightly. So we're going to have to learn to loosen up a little bit on this project, because if not, it's going to turn out really stiff and it's not going to be nice and bendable like we want it to be. So just be aware of that as we go throughout the project. Now, I don't want you to worry so much about the ends of the bracelet or necklace that you choose to do right now. I just want you to worry about getting the stitch. Once I get to the end of the video, I'll talk you through a couple of ways that you can finish off the ends of your piece. But for now, my main goal is to teach you the stitch. Because I want to teach you this and I want it to be easier to be seen on the screen, I'm actually going to use a size 6 seed bead. So mine's going to be pretty bulky, but then I'm going to do it in 11 so that way you can see it really well. So let's go ahead and get started. Before I get started today, I did want to let you know that the board that I'm going to be using today is the Bead Wrangler board. It is from etsy.com/shop/Bead Wrangler board. So to get started, you'll want to thread your needle onto a comfortable length of thread. All right. Now, each person is going to be different. For me, a comfortable thread is about 2.5 yards, but it's completely up to you. Okay. To start off, I'm going to pick up 2 beads. Now, I'm going to start with a ladder. So I'm going to bring this down, and I'm going to leave about an 8-inch tail here. And I'm going to take the needle, I'll hold my tail thread in my hand, and I'm going to go back up through the first bead that I added, just the first one, so that when I pull it, the new bead should sit side by side, just like this. Now I'm going to take my needle and I'm going to come down through the second bead. And when you pull, pull straight down, just like this. I'm going to pick up another bead, and right now my tail thread is coming out of the bottom of my bead, so I want to come back around to make a circle. So I'm coming out here, and I'm going to come right back down through the same bead again. Now, several people have started these all different ways. This is just my way of starting the project. So the thread is coming out here in the middle, so I'm going to come right up through the new bead that I added. Thread on one bead. This is my 4th and final bead of the ladder. My thread is coming up out of the bead, so I'm going to come right back around and go right up through the bead again. So that now, when I pull it here, this is what it looks like. Now I'm going to take my needle and I'm going to come down through the 4th bead here. So now I have 4 beads that are laddered together in a straight line. Now I need to connect the first bead and the last bead together. So my thread is coming out of the bottom of the 4th bead here. So I'm going to take my needle and I'm going to go up through the first bead. So again, tail thread, and I'm going to come up through the first bead, which is where my short tail thread is. And when I do that, I want these to fold together just like this. Okay? Now, I'm going to take my needle. It's coming out of the first bead here, so I have my tail thread and my working thread coming out of the same bead. And you'll notice here that I have little threads at each bead except for this one. So I had to take my needle and come down through the fourth bead again. So this will put a thread there at that bead so that now it looks like a little quad of 4 beads. So to be able to get started with the herringbone part, I need to come back up through the first bead again so that everything is connected together and looking just like this. So it doesn't matter if I work clockwise or counterclockwise, whichever way you start, you always have to continue in that direction. So it's completely up to you. For me, for some reason, I like to do herringbone in a counterclockwise. So that's what I'm going to do. Again, it doesn't matter if you go clockwise or counterclockwise, but my thread is coming out of this bead here. So I'm going to take my needle and I'm going to come down through the bead right next to it. All right, so again, I can either come to this one or I can come to this one, but whichever way I go, I've got to continue in that way the whole piece. So when I do that, my 2 new beads that I just added are going to sit on top of my 2 old beads. Now I'm going to come up through the next bead here, which is going to be this bead. Still working on this base of 4. And I'm going to pick up 2 beads. So if I turn it just a little bit here, you'll see that I have my 2 new beads here, and now I'm picking up 2 new ones. My thread is coming up out of this bead, so I'm going to take my needle and I'm going to come down through this bead so that now I have beads that look like this. And the top row is going to sit wonky just like this is, and that's completely fine. That's what we want it to do. It's okay. Now, I know I'm back to the beginning because here's where my tail thread is. This is where I started. So I have to finish the row, but I have to step up to the next row as well. So this time I'm going to go through 2 beads. I'm going to go through this one and the one right above it. And again, I know I'm there because I'm at the tail thread where I started. So I'll pull that through. Okay, so those are our first 2 rows. Next, every single row after this, we pick up 2 and we go down through the very next bead, and we're only going through the top bead. We're not going through multiples, just the top one. So I come down through the top, and so that now these 2 beads sit on top. I turn it, and I'm going to take my needle up through the next bead here in this row. I pick up 2 beads, and I come down through this next single bead here, which is just this one. And when I do that, now I have 3 rows. Okay, I know I'm back to where I need to do my step up because I'm here where that tail thread is. So when we do our step up, we have to go up through the bead right next to where our thread's coming out and the one right above it, which is this one here. So 1 and 1. So the only time we're going through 2 is when we get back to where this tail thread is. So again, I'm going to do 2 and go down through the top bead of the next stack. Turn it and go up through this bead here. Pick up 2. And I'm going to go down through the next bead. And I turn it. Now remember, I'm back to the step up because I'm here where the tail thread is. So I come up through the bead right next to where my thread's coming out, and the bead above it. This will make just a simple stack. It will naturally twist over time, but we're not intentionally making it twist like we do in some other projects. Like I have a couple of twisted herringbone. We'll put some links in it for you. So it's going to stay pretty well straight as you work. So now I pick up 2 and I come down through the top bead here, turn it, and come up through the next bead. Turn it, pick up 2, and come through the next bead. And then this is where my step up is, because again, it's where my tail thread is. So I come up through the bead right next to where I'm coming out at and the bead above it. So I would continue this whole pattern until I get the length of the necklace that I want or I need. All right. Now, remember, we have to watch our tension, because if it gets to where you can't really bend it, then you are way too tight and you need to loosen up. So now I'm going to switch over to my size 11 seed beads, and we're going to go through this again. All right, so again, I'm going to be using 11s this time. I'm using the 4516 in the Mayuki, which is a Picasso bead. And I'm going to give the dragon thread a whirl on this project and see how it does with the herringbone, because I've not tried it yet. So I'm going to give that a whirl. So again, we start out with our ladder. So we pick up 2 beads and we bring these down. And I'll leave myself about an 8-inch tail here. Okay. And then I come back up through the first bead again, only the first one. Okay. So you'll notice that they don't sit exactly 100% pretty like the 6s did, but that's okay. We make it do it. So my working thread is coming out of the top of the first bead. So I'm going to go down through the second bead. I'm going to thread on 1 bead. My thread is coming out of the bottom, so I'm going to take my needle and I'm going to come right back around and go through that 1 bead again. And I'm going to go up through the new bead. Thread on 1 bead. My working thread is coming out of the top of the bead, so I'm going to come around and I'm going to come back up through the same bead again. And then my thread is coming out here, so I'm going to take my needle and go down through the last bead. And so you'll notice, again, your 11s, when you stitch with them to make your ladder, they're going to be wonky. They're not going to make that perfect little straight line like our 6s did, and that's okay. I'm coming out the 4th bead, so I'm going to take my needle and I'm going to come up through the first bead again. Okay, so remember, our first bead has our little short tail thread in it. So I'm going to come up through that bead, and when I do, I want it to fold up into the little quad. Now, my thread is coming out right here out of the first bead, and you can barely see it here. Let me get everything kind of straightened back up. Because sometimes with your 11s, it's so tiny, things will get twisted and you have to straighten it back up. So there we go. All right, so I've got a thread between these 2 beads, between these two, but none between this one and this one. So I've got to take my needle and come down through the 4th bead again, which is this bead right here. and pull it through. I'm going to be using the 11s now, and I'm using the 4516 in the Miyuki, which is a Picasso finish, and I'm going to give the dragon thread a try. This is an exclusive from Potomac Beads, so you get this thread from Potomac Beads, but I'm going to give this one a try because I think it'll work really great for this necklace. So we're going to start out the same way. We're going to do our ladder of 4 beads, so I have 2 here. And I'm going to leave myself a tail thread. And then I'm going to go up through the first bead again. Remember, we're just going to go up through 1 bead, not both. And then I'm going to take my needle and I'm going to go down through the second bead. And they're not going to sit as pretty. So if you want to, you can go up through the first one and down through the second one again, just to hold them in place. Because the 11s, because of the roundness of them, they're not going to lay wonderful like the 6s that I just showed you on this first row. So I just went through to reinforce them. Now I'm going to pick up 1. My thread is coming out at the bottom, so I'm going to come around to make that circle, and I'm going to go through that bead again. And then I'm going to take my needle and go up through the new bead. Keep my fingers on it. Thread on 1 bead. My thread is coming out of the top, so I'm going to come back around to make a circle, and I'm going to go up through that bead again. So that now I have 4 beads, and you see they are wonky. We will fix that on the next row. So I'm going to go down through the 4th bead here to get into position. And this is where we want to go through the first bead. So we're coming out of the 4th bead and we're going to fold it like this and go through the first bead. So I'm going to go up through the first bead, pull it through so that now I have that little quad of 4 beads. Now remember, I see a thread here, here, and here, but I don't see one from this bead to this bead. So I've got to go down through bead 4 again. And then up through bead 1. Now remember, bead 1 is our bead that our tail thread is coming out of. Okay? So that now we have that little quad of 4 beads connected. Now we're ready to actually do the herringbone part. This is where we pick up 2 beads. Remember, you can go to the right or to the left, but either way, you have to continue in that direction. So I'm going to come through the bead right next to it here and go down through the 1 bead. Okay, and you see there that they sit on top of the beads that I just was coming out of. Now I'll go up through the 3rd bead in my little set of 4 here on my quad. And I'll pick up 2 beads and come down through the 4th bead of the quad. So when I say the quad, again, it's that base of 4 beads there that we originally started with. And now remember, you see how everything's kind of wonky, or my new beads sit diagonal to each other, and that's exactly how they're supposed to sit. So I'm ready to do that step up, and I know I'm ready for the step up because that's where my tail thread is here. So I'm going to take my needle and I'm going to go up through the bead right next to where my thread's coming out and the bead right above it. So 1 and 2, and that's my step up. Now everything from here is just the same thing over and over and over again. So we pick up 2 11s and we go down through just the top bead. So see just that 1 bead there on the top and pull through. And then I'm going to go up through the next bead in that row. Okay, so in that previous row there, pick up 2 beads and go down through the 4th bead of that row. Now this is where our step up comes, because remember, here's our tail thread. So I have to go up through the bead right next to where my thread's coming out, which is this bead here, and then through the bead above it. If you do this step wrong, your piece will start to twist, like immediately. It won't do a gradual twist, it will start to twist. We don't want that. We want these nice straight rows. Pick up 2. And now remember, I'm only going to work with these 4 beads on top. So I pick up 2 and I go down through the next one here on that top. And then I go up through the next. And I pick up 2 and go down through the next bead. I'm here to where my tail is, so I know it's time to do a step up. So I go through the bead right next to where my thread's coming out and the bead right above it. So 1 and 2. And now all I'm going to do is I'm going to continue to do this until I run out of thread or I get the length that I want. So for me, because I'm going to make a necklace, I will continue until I run out of thread, and then I will be back to show you how to get rid of the old thread and add the new thread. So you can see here now that I have some length completed on my little herringbone rope, and I have just a few inches of thread left, and I'm going to go ahead and get rid of this thread. Now, just like on some of the other pieces, anywhere that you put a knot in here, you're going to see it. So you want to make sure that you don't knot this. So what I do is, like, I just added 2 beads, finished my row. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and kind of do my step up here, just like I normally would. And I'm going to leave that thread exactly where it's at for now, so I know where I am at in the design. Now I've got a new piece of thread cut, if I can find it here. A new piece of thread cut. And I'm going to take and thread my needle through just a very, very tiny bit here. Not much at all. And I'm going to start right here where the tail thread is coming out, or my other working thread. And I'm going to come down through a few of the beads there and give myself, I don't know, about 6 inches of thread pulled through. So I'm coming out here. I'm going to come across to the bead right next to it, and I'm going to go up through that bead. And now I'm going to go down through the bead I was just coming out of. And then I'm going to thread through a few more. And when I do that, I want to make sure that that thread doesn't get caught on anything. And then I might go up and then down and just work this thread through the different columns. And this is the point to where if you have 1 or 2 stitches that you think might be a little loose, you can always take and use this tail thread that you've got here to stitch through. Like I said, you just want to be careful as you work to make sure that you're not getting the thread caught on any of the beads. And then I might go back up for just a bit. Biggest thing, I don't want to stay in one place too long with this thread, because if I do and I'm a tight stitcher, it's going to make that even tighter, and we don't want that. So I'm going to give this working thread a little tug, and this thread did not move, so I know it's secure in there now. So I can take my scissors and I can go ahead and now I can trim that thread. Now, I still have all of the new thread here, and it's in position ready to go. So now I can get rid of this shorter thread. I did not get rid of it beforehand because I did not want to lose my place in where I was at with my herringbone. So to do that, I'm going to do this little piece of thread exactly like I did the thread just a minute ago. I'm just going to stitch through beads and get rid of it. The thing is, it doesn't matter kind of how you weave in and out, as long as the thread doesn't show across or around a bead, you're good. Unlike cubic right angle weave that I showed you last week, herringbone stitch, even though you see the thread just a little bit, it's not a thready project like cubic right angle weave is. On crawl, some shapes and size beads that you use, you will see a good bit of thread. And there's, like I said in last week's video, there's nothing wrong with that. That's just how the stitch is. It's a thready project. With this, it's not a super thready project, as you can see. So it's a nice, really nice little piece. So now you can see there that I've got new thread added, old thread gone, and I'm ready to continue on my piece. All right, so after what feels like 500 hours, you are going to have your necklace, bracelet, whatever you choose to make, complete. So this is mine. I'm super happy with it. And I'm left here on the end, you can see, with my 4 beads, just like we had been going on the whole thing. Now, if you are lucky enough and can find a little glue-in cap that will fit, then you can definitely use a glue-in cap for this. My only issue with a glue-in cap is they can be a little bulky, and on something as skinny as this, I don't normally like to do a bulky end cap on something like this. So this is just completely my way of doing it. Everybody's going to do their own way. But I love these new magnetic closures from Tierra Cast. They are from their new, oh God, Celestial line. And I absolutely love these. Love, love, love them. So I'm going to use that one. I used this on another one that I did and I loved it. So it's super easy. I'm going to use a size 6 seed bead. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to connect these 4 beads together. Right now, they're connected on the row below. So I have to go down through the bead right next to where my thread's coming out. And then up through, down through, and then up through again. This will help connect that last row so that all of our beads are now connected. So I'm going to pick up one of my size 6 seed beads. I'm coming out of a size 11 seed bead here on the top, and I'm going to come right down through the next size 11 seed bead. Now when I do this, I might go down through 2 or even 3 beads of that stack. All right, now right now it's just going to sit kind of wonky, and that's okay. I'm going to come up through the beads of the next stack right next to where I was coming out at there. And then I'm going to go through the size 6 seed bead and then through the 3 or 4 or however many beads you're going through on the next stack. So that all 4, if I look at it, it's connected to all 4 of my little holes there now for that size 6 seed bead. Now I'm going to go through and I'm going to reinforce this again just by going through the same beads, and this time instead of going down 3 stacks, I might only go down through 2 stacks. I really want this connected good to the end because this is going to be, you know, what I'm going to pull on all the time to get that magnetic closure on and off, which the great thing about this closure, and I'll show you when I get it done here, is that you don't have to worry about it because it just kind of twists open. But I'm just going to continue to do this. Now, if you want, the reason I like to use a size 6 seed bead is that you can use a jump ring to attach your clasp to the size 6 seed bead. Because of the fact that I want this permanently attached, I'm going to use some little, some seed beads to actually interchange these two or to connect these two. So let me grab my seed beads real quick and I'm going to show you how to do that. All right, so I'm going to stitch through to come out of the size 6 seed bead here. And I'm going to pick up 3 11s, my clasp, and 3 11s. So if you also could do a like a wire protector or something like that, it is completely up to you what you do. But you can see here, I'm just going to go back through that again to make a circle so that it's connected just like this. Now my thread's getting a little bit short here, so I might have to put on a sharp needle. And for those of you who are going, Kelly, a sharp needle, needles are all sharp. Yeah, I get that. Sharps are what we call the short needles. That's what some people call them. So, but I'm gonna go through here several times just to kind of reinforce this, and then I'm gonna get rid of my thread. If I feel like this is really not enough of reinforcement, like this is a little tiny piece, I think I might actually come back and add thread and reinforce this little side a little bit more, because I mean, this is what's gonna hold my piece together. So I want it to be really nice and enforced. So I think that's what I'm gonna do. So I'm gonna do that, and I'll come right back, and then we'll put the end on this side and we'll be good to go. Okay, so I have this side complete, and now I'm gonna do this side. So we're gonna go through the motions again. The great thing about this side is these 4 beads here are already connected. This is my beginning end. So I can go right into adding that clasp. So I've got my size 6 seed bead. I'm coming out here, and I'm gonna go right down through about 3 beads of the 11s right next to it. And then I'm gonna come up through that bead again, and then down through. And I'm going to reinforce it. You can see all I'm doing is just going through the bead and then going through a stack right next to it so that it's all completely centered and looking good. And now when I get back up here to the top, I'm going to come out of that size 6 seed bead there. I'm going to put on 3 11s, and you could use 15s. I think you're going to kind of have to just adjust this to whatever size beads you're going to use here. And then I'm going to go through the other part of my clasp, and then 3, and I'll come back through this again. Now I'm just going to pop that so that it comes apart just like that. So it's a little bit easier to work with. And then I'm just going to continue to reinforce just by going through these beads several more times. I love how this color, or how this, well, I guess you could say color, turned out on these. I used one of the Picasso finish beads, so I wasn't really sure what the finished piece was going to look like, but I am very, very happy with the colors here of this one and how this one turned out. Okay, so once I'm happy with that, now this is the only place I'm going to do a knot. So I'm going to come right here from where I'm coming out at, and I'm going to go right in between my threads here. Leave a little loop and go through. Okay, and then I'm going to go through a few beads here. And then I'm going to come back up. I like to use all the thread that I've got here on the end to do my finishing techniques with, because that way I know that this whole thing is gone through very well and I don't have to worry too much about it coming apart. Well, it's getting frayed here on the end. There we go. Ah! This is the issue when you work with little short tail threads. See if I can, you guys, oh my goodness. Now see, I know some of you are loving this because you're like, oh, Kelly can't get it threaded. How fabulous. She's just like us. Okay. Here we go. So now I've got that tied several times. So I'm... Oh my goodness. How funny is this? Ugh. Get it pulled here. There we go. Well, I guess those have been magnetized. And then I'm going to cut that. And boom, right back together. So I just twist it and it comes off and open just like that, so that you have your completed piece and you can put a pendant or whatever else you want on the piece. Now, I did want to talk to you about, you notice when I said, you know, we don't want it to twist. Let me lay it back up here. You can pretty well see that it's going to naturally twist a little bit, but for a majority, it's going to stay exactly like this, flat, or not flat, but straight. And that's what you want in a regular herringbone necklace that you're going to do, this basic herringbone. So that is the goodies for today. So guys, I've got my little project finished here, but I did want to give you my thoughts on the dragon thread because I've been getting a lot of questions about dragon thread. Now, dragon thread is exclusive to Potomac Beads, and they did send me a couple of spools to test out. So you'll remember if you watched last week's Gloria's ribbon video, I was kind of on the fence about it because it did not hold the stiffness well of what I wanted. But as a very, very, very tight stitcher, this stuff was golden doing herringbone stitch, because if you get herringbone stitch too tight, it won't bend really good. And guys, this has let me do it so fluidly without any worries about it getting too tight as I stitch. So as a tight stitcher, I really enjoyed it in this project. Now, I'm one of those people, I always say, I've got to do about 8 or 10 projects with this, any thread, before I have an opinion about it. So I'm trying to use it and tell you things that I found really great about it as I've used it, or things that I might not like about it. And I'm trying to be 100% truthful with you guys, so that you will know about the new thread. Now, I'm going to do my best to get Allie on my channel sometime soon to talk to you about the new dragon thread. So I hope I can make that happen really soon, and we can learn more about this dragon thread together. So friends, I hope you enjoyed learning how to make this basic herringbone stitch project. Like I said, it can be a necklace, you can do a wrap bracelet if you wanted to. I mean, it's just endless what you can do with this stitch. Now, I will tell you, this stitch is gonna feel like it takes you forever to do. I love to do this while I'm sitting in front, like right now is watching the new Hallmark Christmas movies. So I'll just work on this because it's kind of, once you get the hang of it, it's just mindless over and over and over again. So it's a great project for doing while you're watching TV. Now, I will tell you, if you're like me and you like to have a written project right in front of you so you don't have to keep going back to a video, I do have a step-by-step pattern for this project available on my website, which is offthebeadedpathbeadstore.com. Now, be sure and come back for next week's new video because, guys, I'm going to show you something that I have never showed before here on my channel, and I cannot wait for you to see it. It's in preparation for the following week's video. So I hope you guys will join me. We'll see you again next time. Have a great week. Bye.